Good evening and welcome to Beyond the Politics, our regular look at what's going on right here in the Quinte region and the people who work so hard behind the scenes to make it all happen. I'm your host, Paul Martin. Joining me, my regular co-host, columnist for the Belleville Intelligencer, Colin Mackay.
Thanks, Paul.
And our extra special guest this week, person in this hot seat, and,
yes.
and a few lately, brand new councillor for the City of Belleville, Ward 1, Carol Feeney.
Thank you for having me tonight. I'm very excited.
Yes, well, let's get right into it. Much like you were kind of thrown right into it.
I know that feeling, yes.
It's been an exciting first month, and the two Zoom meetings you've been a part of, because it was about 2 meetings ago that they gave first the notice of motion, and then it was discussed at the meeting that just happened.
That's correct.
About alterations to the ward system. So let's do just a quick recap on that. So right now, Belleville has 2 wards. Ward 1, which is the urban ward, and Ward 2, which is Thurlow, which of course is the rural area generally, but it has subdivisions to the north and on the east side of the city.
Yes.
And that's been the same basically by boundary since amalgamation back in 1998.
Correct.
Now, this proposal is to go from a 2 to a 4 ward system with a suggested set of boundaries, but of course that could still be negotiated at a future time. And 2 councillors per ward. Right now there are 6 councillors in Ward 1 and 2 councillors in Ward 2. So the vote was held at the last meeting, and it was 5-4 to go through to do a first prepare bylaw, do a first reading at the next meeting on the 25th, then give time for public input over the summer, and then come back and have a final vote on whether to go forward or not based on that input at the meeting in August. So first of all, what was it like to be part of that meeting? And you had to talk a little bit about your thoughts behind this. I mean, this was obviously one of the first things you would have been hit with. Right, coming in, and it's a pretty big issue, and it might have been a little intimidating, especially as someone who's brand new to the process.
Well, it was a bit, but I mean, you can look at reasons for change, and I think part of it is going back to Thurlow. There's more and more subdivisions and urban development in Thurlow right now than any place else in the city, and the feeling is that the people that are involved in agriculture are beginning to think that if they keep it that same way, then their voice is going to get less and less and less. And as part of the agreement and amalgamation, that it was clear that that would be protected, that the agriculture and the farmers would be protected to have a voice. So they're starting to get a little bit nervous, I think, and that's coming through. So in looking at that, how do you look at Thurlow? Do you break it up into yet 2 more things and get more councillors, or how do you do that? So I think that there's a step back that was taken to say, okay, we need to make a change, but if we're going to make a change in that particular area only, it's not going to work. So let us look at the big picture. And I think there's been talk about having one great big mega ward, or maintaining the 2 wards, or looking at another way to do it with the 4 ward system. And again, the boundaries, as you just said, are very,
they're not set in stone.
It's just to give an example of what it might look like. And the good part of this is the fact that this isn't just council saying, okay, this is how it's going to be. They really are interested to find out what the public thinks about it. I mean, do they care about it? Would they like to see change? But we don't know that, and unless we get any input from the public, we're just kind of second guessing.
So my first question would be, why not go 5 and 3? Is that a possibility, like 5 for Ward 1 and then 3 for Ward 2? Well, I mean, people are going to say, well, why don't you just do that?
But you know what, Ian, that might work in the short term, but Thurlow's not the only place it's going to grow. Because what is traditionally Ward 1 right now, there's all kinds of plans for growth and development, and now that we're number 4 in Canada, people are looking to move here and relocate. So, I mean, if we were only looking at 1 year, that would probably make sense. But I don't think we want to be going through this conversation every couple of years. We haven't changed it in 22, so let's look at it that way. I think that's the rationale. That's the feeling that I get. And some of the information that, nobody's complained about it so far, so why are we even thinking about it?
Has anybody come up and said to you, I think it's a great idea?
Not yet. I have.
It's early days.
Yeah, I put out some feelers. I mean, it's just Monday, and guess what? The best weather we've had in weeks. I don't think people are really focusing on it, They're out in their gardens right now. But comments about, people haven't really come forward to say that they wanted it. Well, I don't know. I'm not a municipal planner or know about the Municipal Act. But I wouldn't even think to say that because I wouldn't think it could be changed. That's my mentality, and I was surprised when I found out that, that it is within the Municipal Act to look at things like this, and I don't think the general populace knows that.
Well, I don't think the general populace knows a lot of things. Do they even know that if you live in Belleville, you can run in any ward?
I just found that out myself.
So I'm just, technically, let's say I ran in Ward 1.
Yeah.
But I don't live in Ward 1. I can't even vote for myself? I mean, it's a wide...
Yeah, so just stepping in and clarifying. Because this is not a well understood fact about not just Belleville, but about the Municipal Act in general.
Right.
Which is to say, when you run in a multi-ward community, you have to live within the city.
Yes.
Because you have to be a registered voter to be able to run for municipal office. You can't have a criminal record. You have to be at least 18 years old.
Right.
But by law, you're allowed to run in whatever ward you want. Mm-hmm. And this has happened before in the city. For example, Jack Miller, who led the polls in Ward 1 more than once, by the end of his term was living in one of the new major subdivisions in Thurlow Ward. So technically in Ward 2.
Right.
So that not only is a theory that has happened and could happen again in the future.
Right.
So I just wanted to clarify that, because that's one of the biggest points that when you talk about 2 wards, no wards, which is to say one big city, 4 wards or more, people don't necessarily understand.
No.
Because you can split it as many ways as you want.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you have to run in the ward that you live in.
Well, that whole term of split, thank you for bringing that up, because at the end of the day, everyone around the horseshoe is working for the city of Belleville. It's not all of a sudden we end up with these little fiefdoms and then, the Hatfields and the McCoys and all that, not happening. But some people have thought that might be an issue or a danger of looking at this issue. It seems to me that, I didn't know. But technically, if that's the case, then we had 2 wards in the last election. I could have lived in Thurlow and run for Ward 1. So we're not really changing anything. It's always been there, just the level of awareness is now higher than it used to be.
Again, first reading the bylaw at the next meeting,
Yes.
25th. Then 2.5 months before the meeting in August to get input, for you to seek input, for people to contact you. So you would encourage people to contact you.
Yes.
And then make their thoughts heard.
In a broad sense, what would your wish be?
That we would move forward and really protect the environment for future generations. We keep missing that one.
How so?
How so?
Yeah.
Well, there's always back and forth, and we're supposed to reduce emissions by this, and we don't get there, and now there's controversy over the pipelines and all of that. It's
so maybe when you get into transit, you'll look at electric buses and that kind of thing.
Oh, can I talk about that?
You sure can.
Oh my goodness, yes. Well, that is in the works, and one of the things that I'm hoping is that we don't do it piecemeal. All right, rather than just we'll do this much this time, and then we'll do this next year, and we'll do this next year. I'm really hoping that we could really take a really strong look at it and say, let's do it all at once. And I'll tell you why. Because, first of all, there's great savings with the fuel that we're currently using. Second of all, we're 1/6 owner of the electricity, so money's going to come back. So that's that part. The other part, too, is if we're one of the 4 places to live in Canada, can you imagine what people will think of a community that actually does it all at once and is improving the air quality of the people that live here? I think that's huge, big stories, and it's win-win all around. And the other point is, going back to the pipelines, we are assuming, and it's a big assumption, that over the next 5 years, we're going to have the same source of supply at relatively the same cost. I think that that's something that we should look at. I'm not saying the sky is falling, but I think that we can't just think that it's going to be status quo with all the controversies that are happening right now. And sure, it might happen, but do we want to take that chance?
So we have about a little under 2 minutes left.
Okay.
Let's talk about your priorities for the spring. Obviously, the ward debate will have a certain amount of attention, but putting that aside, what things would you like to work for, or what things are at the top of Carol Feeney's priority list for 2021?
Well, the talk about the electric buses is already here, and moving forward with that in the way I just described, I think that's very important. Having a whole wish list right now, I don't, because I'm still my personal thing is trying to get really up to speed. It's going to take a little while, more than the 4 weeks that I've been here, to do that, and then to be able to answer that question at a later date.
Right. Looking further forward,
Yes.
it only has been 4 weeks, but the election in the fall of 2022 is starting to get closer. Have you had any thoughts about whether you might run for another term then?
Well, my thoughts right now are, with the beauty of coming in this late, because there's lots of cons, is the fact that I get a chance to sit in the chair and try it on and see if it's something that I really want to do for the future. It also gives the public an opportunity to see me in action and see if they would like to vote for me. And then as I get closer to the date, then I'll make the decision then and figure out what ward I'm going to run in.
Whether it's 1 ward, 2 wards, or 4 wards, as the case may be.
Exactly, exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Carol, for being here as part of the show. We wish you luck.
Thank you.
And once again, the reminder, you want to hear from everyone about the ward system?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
So get in touch with Carol Feeney. This has been Beyond the Politics with Carol Feeney here on Your TV Quinte.